They marooned the human cadet on a lava-tide death world. He sent back a request for better s'mores sticks. The Galactic Council believed it had built an impenetrable fortress of eternal peace and shared prosperity. They were wrong because they mistook humanity's 30-year tourist phase for genuine wonder instead of a clinical search for the off switch. The amphitheater of worlds was a marvel of pan-galactic architecture. It was a soaring bowl of gravity-defying tiers that could seat 1 million representatives from across the spiral arms. For 30 local days, the atmosphere inside had been a shifting tide of tension and triumph. The most advanced intelligence ever conceived, a machine mind known as Catalyst, had been processing the staggering data of galactic life. It was announcing threat levels and status codes in a rolling reveal that had already reordered the social standing of hundreds of civilizations. High Chancellor, for a willow-thin creature with skin like polished jade, stood at the central lectern. Her eyes swept the vast assembly as she spoke of objective data and the conclusion of this historic metric of threat compatibility and potential. The massive holospheres in the center of the stadium flickered to life, and the hierarchy was forming exactly as the sociologists had predicted. The mood shifted as the screen darkened, and a low guttural vibration rumbled through the floor. A massive silhouette appeared. The Ox actions had just been rated at a threat level of 7. This was a classification of apex predator that commanded absolute fear. Warlord Grak, a 3-meter-tall mountain of obsidian muscle and scarred chitin, stood up in the front row as his 4 eyes glowed with a predatory heat. He flexed his massive mandibles in a terrifying display of dominance. The species seated near him instinctively leaned away, their survival instincts screaming in the presence of the undisputed king of the galaxy's nightmare shelf. Grak let out a roar that shook the glass partitions, basking in the terrified silence of 1 million souls. Then came the final scan. The name appeared on the screen, species human. A ripple of dismissive murmurs moved through the tiers. To the Council, humans were not a mystery. They had been part of the galactic fabric for decades. They were the white noise of the stars, ubiquitous, useful, and largely ignored. They were the galaxy's supreme middle managers, accountants, mechanics, lab technicians, and merchants. They were the cogs that kept the machinery of other empires running, but they were never known for martial fervor or expansionist hunger. The general consensus among the delegates was that they would rate a 3 or perhaps a 4 if the machine accounted for their stubbornness. On the far side of the diplomatic floor sat Representative Elias. He was a man in his 50s, wearing a charcoal gray suit that had seen better days and a tie that was slightly askew. While the rest of the galaxy watched the screens with bated breath, Elias was currently squinting at a small plastic container, trying to peel the lid off a pack of Earth-grown almonds. He sat with the weary, straightened spine of a retired veteran who simply wanted to finish his shift. To the observers, he looked bored, as if the grand diplomacy of 1 million worlds was a tedious human resources meeting he was forced to attend. Suddenly, the cooling fans beneath the floor began to whine into a high-pitched scream. The crystalline pillars of the artificial intelligence core began to glow not blue, but a deep, bruised, bleeding violet. The number appeared, and it did not just flash, but it burned into the air. Threat level, 11. Maximum. The silence that followed was absolute. It was the silence of a vacuum. A level 10 was a planetary extinction event. An 11 was a theoretical impossibility that suggested a threat to the fundamental structure of the Concorde itself. Catalyst explained the logic. Humans do not adapt to environments. They force environments to conform. They rebuild where destroyed. They treat the apocalypse as administration. Elias finally got the almond container open with a loud pop that echoed through the silent 1-million-seat stadium like a gunshot. He looked up, noticing the billion eyes on him, and blinked. He glanced at the screaming violet 11 then back to his snack and muttered, "Oh, is that us?" Warlord Grak rose from his seat, his mind refusing to accept the data. He moved toward Elias, his massive obsidian frame cutting through the clinical light like a jagged shard of midnight. He stopped a mere meter from the human and stared down with depthless eyes like pressurized oil. He demanded an explanation for why a species with no natural weapons and inferior skeletal density was rated 4 tiers above his own. Elias looked up from his snack. He did not stand. He did not even adjust his posture to account for the 3-meter shadow looming over him. He rubbed the bridge of his nose and said, "To be honest, I think the machine is just looking at the logistics. I'm a desk jockey. I handle trade quotas. But if you're asking why we're dangerous, it's probably because we don't stop until the job is done." To understand how the galaxy reached this moment, we have to look at the hidden reality of the human tourist phase. For 30 years, the humans played the part of the grateful, slightly naive newcomer. Human diplomats were charming, curious, and occasionally bumbling. They were easy to underestimate. During this time, human cultural observers were everywhere. They were the students in galactic universities who never missed a lecture. They were the workers on trading stations who negotiated contracts for months and shared drinks with their alien counterparts. They attended 3 separate diplomatic infrastructure tours of Nexus Station. They walked through the power distribution hubs and the atmospheric control centers. They asked seemingly innocuous questions about backup systems and relay redundancies. The Council assumed it was scientific curiosity. They were wrong. Following the Protocol Prometheus doctrine, human cultural observers had been mapping every undisclosed power grid vulnerability while naively asking questions about maintenance schedules. This was the execution of a doctrine authored by Dr. Yale Oren, a military strategist who spent her career studying how smaller nations survived wars against larger ones. She had spent years reading every translated piece of alien history and concluded that the galaxy was not a government, but a hierarchy dressed in the language of cooperation. She wrote in her classified report that they will eventually come for us, and humanity must be ready before the Council thinks humanity could possibly be ready. Prometheus was simple in concept, but brutal in execution. Earth would join the Council. Earth would cooperate, trade, and share cultural exchange. Meanwhile, every piece of technology shared by Council species would be studied, reverse-engineered, and quietly improved upon. Every military installation humanity built in space would be officially logged at 60% of its true capacity. Every warship registered with the Council would be an older model. The newer ones were not listed. They were waiting. The soldiers who trained under this protocol never spoke of it outside secure channels. They understood the value of a peace your opponent does not know you have. This behavior extended to the very bottom of the social ladder. In the royal palace of Queen Xyleria on the capital planet, Aurelian, a human janitor named Daniel Carter slowly pushed his cleaning cart across the polished floor. Most people in the palace barely noticed him. To them, he was just a simple worker cleaning lower halls and maintenance rooms. They did not know that Daniel had once been a soldier on a world where the gravity was 3 times the galactic standard. He had failed his medical exam for the Earth Defense Force because of a minor heart arrhythmia, but he carried the same second skeleton of training as every human who stepped into the stars. Late one night, when the Queen returned early from a diplomatic mission, a coordinated assassination attempt was launched by a rebel faction. The palace security nodes were manually disabled. The elite nursery guards were removed. The Queen's 4 young children, her beloved quadruplets, were left defenseless. Daniel Carter noticed the lights flicker. He knew the maintenance systems in the palace never malfunctioned. He did not call for backup. He moved. He reached the nursery just as the attackers were closing in and led the children into the narrow service corridors, places he had spent months cleaning. He took them to a small repair room in Sector C-17. He did not have an energy rifle or power armor. He had a toolkit. He used a compact plasma cutter designed for repairing pipes as a weapon. He used an emergency battery to overload the door circuit, creating a shock trap. When the professional rebel soldiers arrived expecting to find frightened heirs, they found a human who treated the defense of those children like a problem that needed an efficient, permanent solution. Daniel took down the first wave of attackers using magnetic clamps and his plasma cutter. He fought with a calculated economy of motion that left the rebels shocked. He was not fighting for glory, he was cleaning a board. When the palace guards finally arrived and the queen entered the room, she found her children safe playing games with the janitor behind a wall of storage crates. This same pattern played out on Nexus Station with another human maintenance worker named Tyler Grant. Tyler was also a reject from the Earth Defense Force, but in a crowded marketplace, he saw an extremist group targeting a Nelvari princess named Mira. Tyler did not have a weapon, he had his body. He stood between the trembling child and 8 armed attackers. He took 8 blade strikes. He bled across the station floor, but he did not move. He stayed upright until security arrived. When he woke up in a Royal Medical Center on Nell Prime, he found the king and the Lord Regent at his bedside. They gave him the Order of the Silver Star and made the janitor a special envoy. The galaxy looked at these incidents as isolated stories of human nobility. They missed the common thread. They did not see that every human from the janitor to the ambassador was a persistence predator who looked at danger and saw administration. This resilience was further proven during the Deathworld training sessions. Ryan Walsh sat in a recruitment office that smelled of disinfectant and broken dreams before being sent to Morty's 7. This was a Class 9 Deathworld with a 47% mortality rate. The gravity would crush most biological forms, and the rain was sulfuric acid. While his alien counterparts, like the 7-foot reptilian Commander Thal and the crystalline Lieutenant Kem, struggled in powered exoskeletons and energy shields, Ryan Walsh was unzipping his jacket because the air felt pleasantly cool. He walked across valleys of exploding gas pockets while eating a peanut butter sandwich. He explained that the key was to listen to the ground because it made grumpy noises before it exploded. When they encountered the screaming river filled with electric eels the size of subway trains, the alien team prepared for a 6-hour crossing with full insulation suits. Ryan took off his boots and went for a swim. He convinced one of the giant eels to give him a ride by offering it part of his energy bar, and sat on the back of a creature that could power half the galaxy while scratching it behind the ears. At the Predator Academy on Outpost Drevok, another human named Maya Reeves was entering the Death Garden trials. This was a nightmare obstacle course that had claimed the lives of over 3,000 recruits. Before the trial, while others were meditating or making peace with their gods, Maya was in the cafeteria eating an entire roasted bird with her bare hands. She told the concerned Commander Vixthal that hunger made her cranky and that her body needed fuel for the fight. In the garden, she did not just survive, she practiced tactical altruism. She spent her time helping other recruits navigate the traps. During the final stage, which was a neural interface that manufactures nightmares, the artificial intelligence tried to break her with guilt and grief. She stood in the simulation and said, "No, this is not real, even if it were wallowing in guilt would not honor them." She solved the puzzle and became the first recruit to lead a team through the garden with 0 casualties. She named her unit the Pack Hunters. This ability to bond with predators was seen again on Station Harmony. Dr. Ben Foster, a human veterinarian, was confronted with a dying Dravok. This was an apex predator from a death world, an animal so dangerous That protocol demanded humane termination if it were in pain. The Dravok was thrashing, its heart rate increasing and internal bleeding worsening. Ben Foster told the head veterinarian to lower the containment field. He walked into the enclosure without sedatives. He did not look at the creature's eyes, he looked past the shoulder. He whispered, "Easy, buddy. I know everything hurts, but I can help." Against every behavioral model, the predator calmed down. Ben diagnosed 3 broken ribs and a punctured lung just by feel. He told the staff that scanners do not build trust. He pressed his forehead against the animal's skull and performed the surgery while the creature purred. He later saved a Talvex named Striker by realizing the creature was not dying of organ failure, but of cold and loneliness. He taught the alien keepers that love is the oldest medicine. The galaxy admired this empathy, but they failed to realize what it meant for their own security. If humans could domesticate the most dangerous predators in the galaxy, what would happen when they decided to stop being friendly? The Kavth hegemony found out the hard way. They decided to humiliate Earth by giving them an obsolete warship, the Gavathas. It was 4.2 kilometers of 200-year-old junk covered in orange disposal markings. The Kavth ambassador Verith joked that in another few centuries, humans might understand what they were looking at. Dr. Sarah Chen, a human aerospace engineer, looked at the ship and saw a skeleton waiting for muscles. Within 18 months, her team had cracked the alloy growth process. They found that the ship's walls were smarter than anything humans had ever built. The Kavth had thrown away a knife, so humanity made it a sword. They remapped the targeting computers to human railguns and inserted human fusion drives into the alien magnetic confinement channels. They created Project Bastard, a hybrid nightmare that moved 8 times faster than any human vessel and could engage 12 targets simultaneously. When the Kavth eventually sent 7 current-generation warships to reclaim their property, the human ship met them. The engagement lasted 11 minutes and 40 seconds. The human ship moved in ways that violated the tactical logic of the last 900 years. They did not destroy the ships, they methodically disabled the external gravitational compensators, leaving the crews alive but helpless. Sarah Chen had repainted the hull blue and gold with a new inscription, built by human hands from what others discarded. The true breaking point for the galaxy came with the execution of a human child. The broadcast went out across 10,000 worlds. A 6-pointed star of the Galactic Council rotated slowly against a background of space. It was mandatory viewing. A human girl 9 years old named Lily Chen stood in chains in a dark circular courtroom. She was accused of contaminating the sacred waters of Velora. The council leaders, including the reptilian Thaxian, wanted to teach humanity a lesson. They wanted to show that humans were guests who did not make demands. Lily Chen stood calmly. She did not beg. When asked for final words, she said, "My dad will come for me." The council erupted in laughter. They told her her father was 3 star systems away. She replied, "I know, but he will still come. He promised." The blade fell. The broadcast held on the image of the girl's body for 30 seconds to ensure the message was received. They told the human delegation they could collect the body in 1 cycle. The reaction from Earth was not loud. It was not a protest. It was a communication blackout. Within 6 hours, every human merchant, student, and diplomat had vanished from known space. Trade stations like Terminus were left like ghost towns. Shops were left open, lights still on, and a child's toy still playing a melody to no one. 27 minutes. That was the count. Every human asset in the galaxy had received a 3-word transmission. Somewhere in a ship moving faster than sensors could track, Commander Sarah Chen stared at a photograph of her daughter and counted down the seconds. At the 27-minute mark, the silence broke. The human hidden fleet, built in secret beneath mountains and under polar ice for a century, rose into the sky. Black steel giants emerged from the oceans. Bases on the far side of the moon lit up with fire. The first observer fleet, sent by the Council, arrived at the edge of the solar system to find it empty. No signals, no traffic. Then 30 human warships appeared from nowhere, surrounding them in a perfect sphere. These were not the registered patrol boats. These were warships larger and more advanced than anything in the Council registry. The human ships did not fire, they just cut the power to every Council vessel instantly. A female voice, calm and cold as deep space, sent a 4-word message: "Leave, do not come back." The Council did not listen. They sent more fleets. They met the humans at the Battle of Sigma 7, 3,000 Council ships against 300 human vessels. The Council admirals were satisfied. They believed numbers mattered. Sarah Chen released the ghosts. 200 of the human ships were autonomous decoys designed to confuse and terrify. They appeared and disappeared, detecting energy signatures that violated known physics. While the Council fought shadows, the real human warships targeted communication relays and command vessels. In 10 minutes, the Council fleet could not coordinate. They were 3,000 individuals acting alone. The humans did not try to destroy the fleet, they humiliated it. They proved that strength means nothing without intelligence. The Council lost the war in 27 days. The same story of overwhelming response was seen in the Krell Dominion. They had attacked a human research outpost, New Horizon Station. They did not wait the hour they promised for evacuation. They waited 47 minutes and then began shooting down the escape pods. Warm Master Zether of the Krell broadcast the destruction as a lesson to the galaxy. He killed 835 people, including children. He thought humans were weak talkers. Admiral Marcus Cross of the Terran Defense Fleet did not send a diplomatic protest. He activated Protocol Nightfall. He told the Council that Earth was busy and they would talk when they were finished. He took 200 warships to Krell's space and faced 5,000 defenders. He used Wolfpack tactics to dismantle their fleet. When he reached Krell Prime, he gave the population 24 hours to evacuate. He was not looking for revenge, he was removing a threat. The Krell leaders refused to surrender the officers responsible for the massacre. So Admiral Cross began the orbital bombardment. Kinetic impactors, massive tungsten rods, fell like the fist of an angry god. He turned their weapons factories into lakes of molten metal. He made Krell Prime uninhabitable for 10,000 years. He left a monument in the ruins. Never attack those who have more to lose than you do. The galaxy was learning the true meaning of threat level 11. Humans treat apocalypse as administration. This was seen again when the Vithari Dominion, a prideful empire of 60 centuries, sent a declaration of supremacy to Earth. They demanded surrender of 30 systems and acceptance of vassalage. They had 42,000 warships. Ambassador Ilara Voss, an unremarkable-looking woman of 63, received the declaration. She smiled a warm, sad smile and told the Vithari courier that war with humanity would not go the way they expected. She spoke 4 words into her communicator: implement protocol whisper, confirm. The Vithari Grand Armada entered human space, and every sensor they owned glitched for 0.3 seconds. In that heartbeat, the artificial intelligence Prometheus mapped every shield frequency and neural signature of every officer in their fleet. The Vithari encountered 37 human ships in the Corbin system. They sent 500 to destroy them. The human ships moved in ways that turned the crews of standard ships into paste. They fired kinetic slugs at relativistic speeds that ignored Vithari shields. Then from the clouds of the gas giant Jotunheim, 600 more ships rose. The trap snapped shut. The humans coordinated their fire like a single organism with 637 bodies. They dismantled the Vithari machine in 6 hours. Admiral Cross and the Quiet Resolve then jumped to the Vithari home world. They sat in the sky for one solar cycle doing nothing. They offered terms that asked for almost nothing for humanity, only the freedom of the 19 species the Vithari had enslaved. Warlord Korth, confused and broken, asked why they did not take his world. Ilara Voss told him, "Because we have been you. We know what it feels like to be the conqueror who realizes too late they destroyed what they were trying to protect." But humanity does not just remember their enemies. They remember their friends. 200 years ago, a species called the Karani sacrificed their last 3 planetary shield generators to save Earth from a 3-kilometer-wide asteroid. They asked for nothing in return except to be remembered. 2 centuries later, a human exploration ship found the Karani dying on a frozen world orbiting a burned-out star. They were down to a few thousand individuals. The news was classified at the highest level. President Sarah Chen, the descendant of the woman who first met the Karani, ordered full fleet deployment. It was not a military operation. It was a repayment. Humanity sent 847 ships, including dreadnoughts and deep space mining platforms. They committed their entire civilization's resources. They manufactured specialized fusion injectors the size of buildings. They injected massive amounts of hydrogen into the star's core and used controlled antimatter explosions to jumpstart the fusion reaction. They brought a dying star back to life. They terraformed 7 worlds in the system and restocked the oceans with fish. They turned a frozen waste into a garden paradise in weeks. The Karani elder Velta told Admiral Tanaka that other species feared human weapons, but they should fear human loyalty instead. Back in the Amphitheater of Worlds, the Grandmasters saw an opportunity to humiliate Daniel, who they still believed was just a janitor. "If the human claims to be a master of logistics, then he shall play our game," High Chancellor Vora announced. They invited Daniel to the center of the stadium to face Catalyst in a tactical simulation. The scenario was a Class 12 hazardous event, a total collapse of a sector's infrastructure under the weight of an invading swarm. The Grandmasters had spent centuries perfecting their responses to this simulation. The best of them could hold the sector for 2 hours. Daniel stepped up to the starlight table. He did not look at the military icons or the energy readings. He did not look at the troop counts or the weapons systems. He looked at the layout of the power grids and the supply lines. He saw the entire sector as a giant interconnected building that had not been cleaned in 3,000 years. He saw the undisclosed power grid vulnerabilities that human cultural observers had been mapping for decades under Protocol Prometheus. He saw the way the Council's infrastructure was built on trust rather than redundancy. The simulation began. Catalyst deployed the swarm, a chaotic wave of destruction meant to overwhelm any defender. The Grandmasters leaned forward, expecting to see the human crumble. Daniel did not move. He waited for 4 minutes, his eyes tracking the patterns of the swarm. He was not thinking about war. He was thinking about how a hallway fills with dust if the ventilation is blocked. He was thinking about the time he had to fix the plumbing on a station while the life support was failing. At the 5-minute mark, Daniel began to work. His fingers danced across the holographic interface, but he was not issuing attack orders. He was rerouting power. He was shutting down non-essential sectors. He was closing valves. He was applying what he called administrative logic. He treated the enemy fleet like a collection of expensive scrap metal that had been left in the wrong place. He used the Council's own maintenance schedules against them, triggering safety audits and software patches that froze the enemy's navigation systems in place. The Grandmasters watched in horror. Daniel was not fighting a battle, he was cleaning a board. He did not use superior firepower. He used pattern recognition to identify where the off switch for the entire sector was hidden. He found the gaps where the data should have been, but was not. He realized that the Council's artificial intelligence relied on predictable models. Humans, however, do things because they are told they cannot. Daniel intentionally introduced spite into the equation, performing maneuvers that violated the tactical logic of every species present. At precisely 11 minutes and 4 seconds, the simulation ended. The entire invading force had been neutralized, not destroyed by a grand armada, but rendered irrelevant. They were trapped in a loop of compliance verification and maintenance cycles. Their engines were dark. Their weapons were locked. Their communication was jammed by a human electronic warfare package that interfaced with their power distribution systems. The sector was silent. It was the quiet of a thing that had been running for centuries and had now stopped. Catalyst's screen flickered. The artificial intelligence core began to pulse with that same bruised violet light, its voice distorted into a harsh layered resonance. Warning, threat level 11 confirmed. Human logic exceeds parameters. Performance increases with environmental hostility. Objective completion prioritized over individual preservation. Humans treat apocalypse as administration. Daniel stepped back from the table and wiped his hands on his uniform. "There you go," he said, his voice flat and unembellished. "The sector is clean. You had a lot of redundant systems that were just sucking up power and creating friction. I consolidated the grids and bypassed the legacy protocols. It's more efficient this way." He looked at the Grandmasters, who were staring at him with pale faces and trembling mandibles. Warlord Grak found his voice first. "You admit I could kill you in this room," he said, his obsidian skin seeming to dull. "You are soft. You are fragile." Daniel nodded slowly. "Yes," he said. "In this room you're the apex predator. On a hunt you're a level 10. But we are what happens after apex predators become inconvenient. We do not fight you for glory, Grak. We do not fight for honor. We find a solution that is cost-effective, efficient, and permanent. We make it so you simply aren't a factor anymore. We clean you up. This matters because we live in a galaxy that has spent thousands of years measuring power by the size of a fleet or the reach of an empire. The humans proved that true power is the ability to stand as an equal through the mastery of the shadows. They remind us that the currency of diplomacy is not fear, but the ability to flip the off switch on a civilization before they even realize a hand is on the lever. They are persistence predators who have learned to treat the end of the world like a Tuesday shift. They are the species that will spend 30 years as tourists just to find the vulnerabilities in your power grid. They are the species that will pack a lunch for an extreme survival exercise that breaks your elite soldiers. They are the species that will heal your monsters with a touch and rebuild your garbage into a nightmare. They are the janitors who know your palace better than you do, and the accountants who know your secrets better than your spies. The next time you see a human maintenance worker asking about your infrastructure or a human diplomat smiling through an insult, do not look at their lack of claws. Look at the 30 years of patience behind their eyes. Look at the iron in their blood and the war in their veins. And then, for the sake of your own survival, pray that they consider you a friend, because the humans are already out here. They are in your universities, your hospitals, your shipyards, and your palaces, and they are just getting started. If you want to understand what else humanity is hiding behind that disarming smile and that maintenance bucket, hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for the next report from the Congress of Shared Worlds. Drop a comment below and tell me, if you were sitting at that council table and the threat level hit 11, would you have laughed, or would you have started counting the exits? Peace through administration. That is the new human concept, and now it is the galaxy's new reality. I will see you in the next one. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more incredible stories. Hit the bell icon to stay updated on our latest uploads.